and welcome to the Sports for Dummies podcast. It's been a while, but we are back and we're raring to go. This is the podcast for you, whether you know everything about sports or absolutely nothing. My name is Hope Ellen, and each week I am joined by the wonderful sports guru, Lewis Pearce. Lewis, how you been?
Hope, I'm absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I got back from it was a two-week holiday, near enough. From Cornwall. I went backpacking all around Cornwall, north to south. And for those that are watching on YouTube, I actually have a proper tan line. Like I don't know how well that is on camera. I actually am properly tan, where my watch was. So there you go. I literally cannot believe how much I managed to catch the sun while I was away.
I've never heard anyone backpacking around Cornwall. Normally it's like, I went backpacking around Europe. Just sticking to Cornwall.
Yeah, well, because for a couple of reasons. Practically, obviously, really easy to get to. You take your car down there, you set up, you do your stuff, then you move on, nice and straightforward. But it's actually fairly cheap. Like when you look at a holiday objectively, for the entire 12-day trip, guess how much I paid for sort of camping for the whole thing?
$280.
Hope, look, you're near enough dead on, like near enough at $290. It was less, the point is it was less than $300. If you think about a holiday, because I had people speak to me on the trip that were like, you're like, oh, you're backpacking around Cornwall, that's lovely. But they were like, oh, you can go to Paris for £25 or whatever. And that's like, well, that's fantastic. You know, you can get a flight. I've got mates that have gone to Reykjavik, say, in Finland or wherever. You know, you can go all around the world for cheap money, but you've got to think, you've got to do hotel, you've got to do food, you've got to do this and that. So actually, when people make these claims like, oh, you can do a holiday for £100 abroad, well, it's not really true.
Yeah, I mean, even if you fly with like Ryanair, like they put so much money on top for all your baggage and stuff. I mean, this is a really fun part of the podcast, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah, really enjoyable.
I've also been on holiday. I went, not taken away from Cornwall, but I went to Gran Canaria.
Yeah,
and
wow.
We done half board, right? So we were like, obviously, your breakfast and your dinner's included. We were like, oh, that's all right. Rest.
Yeah.
Well, when it came to checking out, obviously we'd been getting a bit of many cocktails and that. It was $280 each. Half.
What, for drinks?
And that was only 4 days.
That is terrible. Oh my days.
So you're right. So yeah, doing the Cornwall trip, backpacking around Cornwall, and Cornwall's beautiful, by the way.
Oh my days! I hope genuinely. That's one thing I would say to any listeners that are interested. It's one of those places where, as a kid, I went to Cornwall quite a few times growing up and stuff, and you appreciate it for its beauty. But when you go as an adult, we went out of school time because there's not school holidays yet, so we were there, and it was fairly quiet for Cornwall. It is stunning. Like genuinely, as soon as I can move there, when I have money, when my life is set up, I absolutely will. Do you know how boring it is driving home 8 hours and knowing there is no seaside to look at? I can't tell you how annoying it was driving home. That's the worst bit about it, was knowing like the seaside. It's all good being blue and sunny and stuff, but just being by the coast, even the heat, in London, near enough London, this heat is dry, whereas Cornwall, it's balmy, it's nice. It's like, it was amazing. I had the best time.
Can you surf, by the way?
I can surf, yes. I can surf. So we did surfing, we did kayaking, and I'll share one story that's sports related.
Go on.
So I got an inflatable kayak for my 21st birthday. That's what I've always wanted, because obviously, because we're not near the sea, if I could, I'd surf all day long. That's my preference for water sports. But obviously, we haven't got any surf here. So the closest thing to that for me would be kayaking. Anyway, got an inflatable kayak for my 21st birthday. I've done canals near me. I've done some canals in London. Absolutely fine. The sea, though, is a different ballgame. And we went to a beach that I can share a photo of that is next door to the Minnock Theatre, which is a very famous theatre in Cornwall, which looks out over the sea. So it's a beautiful theatre. And the beach literally next door was where we went kayaking. Now, we were recommended this place by numerous people saying it was amazing, this and that, blah, blah, blah. This was terrible. So we went out on the sea. That was all fine. And there was a secret bay that was next door. So we kayaked round, pulled into this bay, and we basically got stuck and our kayak capsized. But the problem with an inflatable kayak is that the bottom is it's not like obviously a solid hard kayak where if it flips, you can just tip the water out. It actually started to sink. So we had this whole issue of how it was terrible. We arrived at 4. We were aiming to have about an hour there and leave at about 6. We got to our car at 8. It took us 2 hours to get off the beach. We lost sunglasses. Like, it was awful. It was honestly terrible. Anyway, in the end, very kindly, there were these two suppers, so stand-up paddleboarders who came into the cove, saw the issue we were having, and helped us basically push us out into because the waves were absolutely crazy, pushed us out into the waves, and then we literally paddled as hard as we could around the cove and then into the beach we were on. It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare, but we lived to tell the tale. That was not one of the highlights of the trip, I will say. That was terrible. The worst thing was the Coast Guard, who was, and I can't blame him, no disrespect, he was literally about 12 years old. He literally must have done his GCSEs that day, said to us, "Oh, don't worry, guys. It looks amazing out there. You'll have a great time." We literally got on the water and it was like being on a roller coaster. It was absolutely terrible. But anyway, we are here and we made it, so we're all right.
Also, other news from you, your radio documentary. Give that a plug in case people haven't listened to it yet.
Oh, thank you. Well, if anyone listening that hasn't heard, I released a documentary called Frank Suit, the Forgotten Legend on YouTube, which is on my YouTube page. I'm sure we can link it in the description wherever this goes. And it's basically about Frank Suit, who was the first non-white man to play internationally for the England national football team. And it basically looks into his career and why his career was expelled from the history of English football, because he is one of the most important people to ever play football for England, and unfortunately very few people know his name, so I won't give too many spoilers. You'll have to go listen to it yourself if you haven't already, and if you have, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support.
Very interesting. I went to the listening party, absolutely bloody loved it.
Hope, I'm so glad you were there. That was the best, and we'll include a photo here of me and Hope there together, because Hope came and it was very, very sweet.
I felt ever so proud, and I met his mum and dad. It's great.
Yeah,
fun.
See, it's like it was like my older sister meeting my long lost family or something like that.
Feel like that, to be fair.
Yeah, it did. Should we crack on with the episode?
Yes, I think we probably should. 8 minutes of waffles, plenty good enough.
It's quite a fair amount. So we're kicking off with story number 1, and we're talking about the GOAT of football. Talking about football, we're talking about Mr. Leo Messi. Some news actually that's come out about his recent transfer to Inter Miami. Do you know? You obviously know where Miami is. Hope. Who owns Inter Miami? That's a great question for you. Or is co-owner?
Oh, is it celebrity?
Yes, big time. Cologne.
Cologne.
Football. Cologne, as in like perfume, men's perfume, cologne, football.
I was going to say Ralph Lauren, but that's not right, is it?
No.
I don't know why. When you said aftershave, I just imagine Ralph Lauren.
Man United.
Michael B. Jordan? No?
Footballer.
Oh, he's a footballer. Right, well.
Yeah, or ex-footballer.
David Beckham.
Well done. And David Beckham.
Do you know what? I was going to say David Beckham to begin with. I'm not even going to lie to you. I actually was going to say David Beckham, and then I thought, no, he was LA Galaxy.
Yes, he was. You are right. But he then.
So that's why I doubted myself, and then I went with this random track of Ralph Lauren and Michael B. Jordan, which were completely AWOL.
Yeah, Michael.
I was going to say David Beckham. Just saying.
Well, you're right. Well, partially right. So the co-owner, who's called I think it's Jorge Mas. Anyway, co-owner of Inter Miami. He's a billionaire, very rich man. He actually has revealed that the 36-year-old Argentine Leo Messi is going to be earning about $50 to $60 million a year. Now, this is quite controversial, Hope, for one reason, because Messi had all sorts of offers around the world. His contract expired with Paris Saint-Germain, so he finished his season there and basically decided he obviously wanted to move away, and that was that. So everyone thought the fingers were pointing to Barcelona, but Barcelona are in loads of debt. There's a massive problem there. They've got huge money issues. And the other place that's arising, which we're going to discuss now, is Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia have been pumping money into football left, right and centre. They've picked up some of the best names in Europe, so players like Karim Benzema and N'Golo Kante, obviously Cristiano Ronaldo plays there, all on ridiculous wage packages. And it was said that Al Hilal, who are one of the teams that play in the Saudi League, offered Messi 500 million euros a year to play alone.
So why did he say no to them and yes to 60 mil?
Well, this is the interesting thing, because probably there were, again, it's always hard to say, but I would give 2 reasons. Number one, if he moved to Saudi Arabia, you've then got the rivalry again between him and Ronaldo. Now, that obviously went on at Real Madrid and Barcelona for numerous years.
All about it.
You see, exactly. You're a keen Barca Real. You're a keen Barca Real fan.
I know all the drama, all the tweets back and forth, right?
All the gossip,
all of it.
You're all over it. And whereas, interestingly, the second point I'd say, so that might be one, because again, at 36, you don't want to have to do the whole competing thing of who's got more assists and goals and all that stuff. The other thing that was quite interesting is that with the MLS, which is the Major League Soccer, so that's who owns that league in America, like the Premier League in England, the MLS actually have an Apple Live Pass, which effectively is like Sky Sports. So Apple Live signed a 10-year deal this year that's worth $2.5 billion, and that's to stream all the MLS games out, obviously in America. Now, Messi is set to receive a cut from that. The other big thing as well is that Inter Miami are sponsored by Adidas, and Messi is one of, obviously, Adidas's global figures. So really, Messi often needs a team that is sponsored by Adidas. Not always, it's not a guarantee. When he played at Barcelona, they're sponsored by Nike.
It's in his favour.
Yeah, when he was at PSG, sponsored by Nike. So not absolutely, but obviously it does favour a footballer when the team they play for is sponsored by the same company.
Why is he getting a cut from Apple?
Because basically Apple, alongside MLS, want to promote the league. And because, in essence, basically what Apple and Inter Miami and the MLS are trying to do with Messi is promote their league. So when Ronaldo went out to Saudi Arabia, they sold out all their stadiums to watch him. Same thing with Messi going out to America. But I think that's what's quite interesting about this story is the fact that he's going to take a cut because effectively it's a two-way deal. Messi goes to the MLS. Definitely not the best league in the world, but we can come on to that in a minute. And then the flip side is that they say, you come to our league and we will give you a cut of the money that's raised because you can guarantee any club that Messi goes to, all stadiums are sold out. It's like with Ronaldo, they're two absolute figureheads of football and two of the most iconic players of all time. So it's quite interesting, actually. And Mas, so the co-owner again, has said Messi can turn the MLS into one of the 2 or 3 biggest leagues in the world, and also revealed that Leo is going to have a stake in the club when he retires. So there are effectively long-term packages for him.
He's sorted. I mean, there's obviously the money in Saudi, which he was offered, but the benefits that he's being given here probably outweigh all that because they're for longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing to think about too, obviously, is that America is not super close, but relatively close, especially Miami being down the south of or southeast of America, is obviously not that far from Argentina. So there are some pros in that sense because being in Barcelona, then Paris, and then even in Saudi, you're miles away from Argentina. Whereas being on that sort of North-South America that North-South America continent, I was going to say, is actually really practical. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see how he gets on. For me personally, I would have liked to have seen him go to Saudi only to compete with Ronaldo and be in that league because actually quite a few big names have gone there. It's quite interesting. There are some quite fun teams to watch now. So all the other ethical things we don't have to discuss necessarily, but from a football perspective, I think it would have been really fun. What I will say about the MLS is it certainly isn't, in my opinion, it isn't a league that is absolutely thriving, but I'm sure Messi will attract big crowds as he always does.
On the note of football, and I don't know what these stories are this week, so I apologise if I'm jumping the gun here, but Stormzy and someone else have bought Croydon.
Yes, Wilfred Zaha, that is right. They bought Croydon, I think they're called Croydon AFC, and they're in the 8th.
Oh, Wilfred.
Wilfred Zaha, yeah.
I know him.
Do you?
Yeah.
How do you know him?
Well, not know him. I don't know him as a friend, but I researched him once when I went for an audition.
Oh, did you?
Don't know him. I just know of him.
Yes. So Stormzy is from Croydon. Wilfred Zaha is from Croydon. So that was where the Croydon link comes in. I don't know a lot more about the club than that, really. So we'll have to wait and see how they get on. But quite exciting, really, because obviously Stormzy was the manager at Soccer Aid, who was quite passionate. That was really fun. Don't know if you watched that. So yeah, it's good that he's getting.
I did, and I laughed my head off. Did you see the bit where Bolt and Mo Farah had a bit of a clash?
Yes, yeah.
Very funny to see. Also, I wonder if Harry Redknapp's going to be supporting Stormzy, like advising him with this new move.
Potentially. I mean, obviously,
quite buddy.
Wilfred Zaha he's a professional footballer. Is likely just came from Crystal Palace, likely to move away to another club in this summer. He's now a free agent. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Potentially, I'm sure Stormzy knows a lot of people, and I'm sure he will have big names involved in some capacity. And I suspect the higher up the leagues they go, you will then see probably big names attracted because it's always quite fun. It's a bit like the Ryan Reynolds situation with Wrexham. It's just a very
totally is.
Yeah, just a different scenario because they're a lower league team. And to be fair, I don't know Stormzy's net worth, but he's got to be fairly solid, I would say.
Whereabouts are Croydon in terms of leagues?
What, the team AFC Croydon?
No.
What?
Whereabouts are they? Are they like Kings Lynn level?
You mean the team that they've just bought? What level are they?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's why I said Croydon AFC. That's their team that they bought.
Right.
No, there are a few, but there'd be 3 or 4 leagues below them. So, like for Kings Lynn, so they're a proper non-league team.
Oh, wow. So they are bad then.
Well, it's terrible. They're not bad. They just don't have, they might have any money, or they might just be a club that, like a non-league. Now they've got big owners. I suspect over the next 5 years, you'll see them absolutely shoot for the stars. So story number 2, we're talking, interestingly, about the Australia cricket green cap, which is known as the baggy green, because currently the Ashes are on. And I know quite a few people our age have been wondering what the baggy green history is. So I'm going to give you a little Sports for Dummies history lesson and make it more relevant to nowadays and why people wear it. Have you seen the baggy green hats, Hope?
No, I don't know anything about this baggy hat. Although I have got an Australian hat with like corks on it.
Ah, yeah, okay, that makes sense. All right. Yeah, so basically, Hope, we can include a photo of the cricketers wearing it. Now, the baggy green, as it's known, was first sort of worn in sort of the late 1800s. We won't do all the like very far back history, so the early origins. If you would like to research that, go and look it up for yourself. This is just a rough overview. But yes, so really, the first Ashes match began, I believe it was 1887. So effectively, the late 1800s, like the early 1890s, we'll call it. And then skip forward 100 years, which seems ridiculous. Players were still wearing it and stuff. But they basically, Australia cricket decided that they wanted to effectively, I would say, I don't know what the right word would be. They basically wanted to commemorate this hat being an iconic hat that was worn right at the beginning, a bit like iconic football shirts. So you might occasionally see that a football club will do a 125th year anniversary shirt in memory of da-da-da. Now, these hats have been worn ever since, so they haven't changed at all. They're still made exactly the same way. Very simple design. They look a bit like a flat cap, actually, and they've got a crest on them with a wreath of red and gold. They've got a shield, and then the Australian supporters, who are the emu and the kangaroo. So if you'd like to go and just look up the hat, we can include an image on screen. They're great hats, but they look a bit like a flat cap that says Australia on it. That's how I would describe it. Now, in the late 1990s, one of the famous Aussie cricketers called Steve Waugh basically said that all new players that would come into Australian cricket, and that's top cricketers, by the way, this is like professional, the creme de la creme playing internationally for Australia, would receive a baggy green from past players in a similar position. So if you're a batsman, if you're a bowler, if you're a field, whatever relevance you have.
That's nice.
Which is quite fun. So as an example, if you were, if we relate it to football terms, I know lots of football fans listen to this. If you were a goalkeeper, you would receive a shirt that a goalkeeper wore, or a defender, or whatever.
Or gloves.
Exactly, which is really actually, I think, a really, really fun, like a really fun tradition they've kept. Now, it's actually, the Australian baggy green is actually regarded as the most famous sporting cap in the world, which I think is quite interesting. And the hysteria, which I didn't know about, but actually began back in sort of 2003 time when it really took off, because a contestant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire obviously won a whole load of money, and he paid 425,000 Australian dollars for basically the best batsman of all time, who's called Don Bradman. He bought his 1948 Invincibles cap. So talking about sports memorabilia. Now, ever since then, that world of baggy green hats has absolutely taken off. And they've sold, I believe it was over 250 hats in that time from various players and even players that have only played, say, one test match for Australia, or even it came off injured. There are stories of like players that even wore their hats they put on their hats, did some painting, and they sold their hats for loads of money because they're iconic. Now, the reason for that is that Cricket Australia actually don't license them for sale. So they can never be bought, so they're only ever earned. So any item that you ever see worn would effectively like an unofficial piece of merchandise. So you get it from Amazon or eBay or wherever, because they're not made. You cannot actually buy them. I think that's quite interesting, like the fact there is something so iconic. We're going to wrap it all up with story number 3. And we're going to talk about something which I quite like the thought of speaking about. I don't think we've spoken about rowing before. We definitely haven't.
We have Oxford and Cambridge.
Exactly, but we've never discussed the
Exactly.
Henley Royal Regatta.
Oh, Henley. I used to live near there. I've been there.
Yeah, Maidenhead is down your way. Well, was down your way.
Yeah, Henley's a lovely place. And I went there once for a day out, just by myself, walking around. And on the river, I saw people training, actually having lessons. So it's a big thing there.
Hope it's massive. This year, the 2023 edition took place last week. So at the time of recording, this is the 3rd of July. So effectively from last Tuesday, whatever it was, to Sunday, the 2nd of July. And actually, Hope, the 2023 edition attracted 732 entries, which is the second highest number of entries in their 184-year history So that is a lot of boats. Well, rowing boats, if you want to call them that. Now, there were some quite fun stories that took place, like two-time Olympic champion Helen Glover featured with her GB team of 4. She's one of the 4, of course. And they were gearing up for Paris 2024, which is the Olympics next year. So there are levels all the way from intermediate, so effectively like semi-pro, non-league rowers, all the way up to like the creme de la creme, greatest rowers. And
all in one little competition?
Yeah, well, across the days, but they're all feature different competitions. So there are lots of competitions featuring different races. Now, on each day, there are a number of different races, like I said, all often contested by 2 boats. Now, sometimes you'll have a 2x2 or a 4x4. So you have 4 people against 4 people and 2 against 2. And the course is always 1,750 metres. The reason for that, I don't know. So if you do know, please just let us know in the comments or email us at sportsfordummiespodcast@gmail.com. That is something I didn't find out. But there you go. I thought it was quite fun. But the point about Henley is it's not just about the rowing. It's the social aspect too. Because, and this is where it gets quite interesting.
Ooh.
Now, I didn't know that...
Hold on to your baggy hat.
Oh, this is what I was going to say about a social event. It's not just the rowing. The social event is this massive thing that comes with it because you end up coming, you wear if you work for a different club or if you have a different affiliation with a club, you wear a different coloured suit, you wear funny ties, and the big thing is watches. So everyone goes dressed for the occasion. And interestingly, it's right in between Royal Ascot and Wimbledon. And it's just before the school holidays have happened. So often loads of people come out and are all dressed up for it. And this year, there were thousands and thousands of people in Henley for the 6 days. So, Hope, I was going to ask you, if you had to pick a team of 4, right, including yourself, 3 others, which celebrities would you row with in your boat and why?
Cool. That's a question. I don't know why, but I'm choosing Stormzy.
Okay, going Storms. Yeah, strong.
Long arms. I reckon he'd be quite good rowing a boat.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think I'm just going to go for some strong people. Tyson Fury, strong.
Okay, yeah. Good idea. Okay, yeah.
And he'd be quite loud. I feel like he'd be quite good. He'd be good for motivation, but it'd also be good if someone was in the way.
Yes.
You doctor.
Yeah.
The lady from Question of Sport.
Well, Gabby Logan or Sue Barker is her name?
Sue Barker. She's sporty.
Well, she presents some. I don't know if she... Okay.
She used to play tennis.
She did. I was joking. That was the whole point. I was waiting for you to say, is she? Yeah.
So she'd have
well
good
done.
arms.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right.
I would probably choose a rower if I knew any. But I don't. What's your choice?
We'll start off with a sportsman. I've got to go Ross Edgley. Absolute legend. One of my heroes.
Oh, yeah, you love Ross Edgley.
A bit of a monster. Now, I'd also go, quite literally, and I would pick anyone that was available. Any drummer from any heavy metal, death metal band that have arms that just absolutely go. Because obviously, you need fitness, but you need good arms. So I think...
You could go for Travis Scott.
He doesn't drum, he just sings and has auto-tune.
Not Travis Scott. Oh, what's that his name? Travis Barker.
Travis Barker. Okay, fine. Right, MG, I'll go... Okay, there you go. You go Travis Scott. All right, it's lit.
Anyway.
Okay, Travis Barker, Ross Edgley, and I'll finish off with... I think you're right. I think you need a motivator in there. I think you need someone that's mentally strong, like strong-willed, very tough. I'm going for Serena Williams, I reckon.
Yes.
I
thought you were going to go Bear Grylls then.
Bear's another good one, to be fair.
Although he'd get everyone to drink their own urine if we were thirsty. Like, you know what I mean? No one wants that on a rowing boat.
I think our teams would have a good race, to be fair. I'd
definitely beat you.
You would not.
Stormzy and Tyson Fury.
We're going rap on one side and we rock and roll on the other as we're going along.
Oh, what a way to end. Let us know in the comments or drop us an email, as Lewis mentioned earlier, sportsfordummiespodcast@gmail.com. Tell us who you choose in your little rowing boat.
Everyone, that wraps up the Sports for Dummies for today. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. If you have enjoyed, please do leave us a like on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you're listening from. Any of the things, as we said, please do email us, sportsfordummiespodcast@gmail.com. And we'll be back very soon with the latest sporting news from around the world. Hope, all the love.
Love you, Lewis.
Bye, Hope. Bye.